NCML, National Collateral Management Services, as it is called, is the country's largest post-harvest agri solution provider in the commodity space. Our biggest business is our storage and preservation business, where we have between what we own and what we have leased about 1.5 million tons of storage capacity, which is in terms of space about 8.25 million square feet, and where we are working with about 12,500 clients across the country. The space is actually spread across about 150 locations across the country, and we deal with about 12,500 clients. So that's the largest, what I would call the physical business. And we are going further ahead in that business by now engaging in setting up silos in partnership with the Food Corporation of India. And there are about 13 silo locations across the country, largely in Punjab, Haryana, UP, and Bihar, where we are setting up silos with about 50,000 tons capacity each. Then links into what we call our supply chain management business, where we procure and fund enterprises, which is essentially food processing companies and traders, to procure grain, store it for them, and finance them as they use it. Further linked to that is our testing and inspection business. We are spread across the country again with more than 15 labs across the country, which are engaged in testing, inspecting agriculture commodities and food products. And we have a lot of regional lab, a lot of what I would call inspection centers, because crops and mandis are all over. So we are essentially testing all over the country. Next business, that is another service business, is we provide crop advisories and weather advisories to the insurance companies. We have about 4,500 automatic weather stations which gather weather data to share with insurance companies and the government agencies when they need to assess the impact of weather on crop progress and crop losses. But apart from that, we use that information and our presence on the ground. I mean, today we are present in about 2,500 mandis across the country to gather information on price movements. We are daily monitoring about 300 prices for about 340 commodities. So NCDX was the founder of NCML to begin with, which is where there was a need to have an agency which could provide storage in a controlled environment for commodities to be delivered when they were traded on the exchange. And that was one of the early reasons for us to, for NCML to be set up. What we have evolved over the years is a partner with the government agencies, because all said and done, a large part of agriculture in India still has significant government engagement, be it through storage, testing, movement, and storage at the destinations. So we have been partnering with FCI, not just for storing, but FCI also carries out, or the various state governments also carry out under the aegis of FCI procurement from of the various crops, largely wheat and paddy, but in certain cases pulses and maize. And we have been partnering with the government from time to time, one in their procurement plans, and most certainly and more consistently in their storage plans. Okay, so what the government has done, it has unlocked a lot of opportunities. Now, I would not be jumping with joy immediately on account of that, because it's like saying that, okay, we have opened up the platform, or we have opened up the marketplace. But that then requires people to go into that marketplace and set up their shops and do business, which will help them make money. I mean, one of the challenges with agriculture is that because it deals with farmers, and farmers are a lot that is not necessarily the best paid and the best, people who get the best rewards for their efforts. So there is perhaps a mindset which says that, anything you do with the farmers has to have an altruistic or a charity goal to it. But from our perspective, we see this as a great opportunity I would say, medium to long term, though some of the activities that we are doing play right into that space, which is when they're saying that you can set up private private mandis, and which could be linked to warehouses. So an organization which has presence over 150 locations is probably best suited without having to make new investments to get those activities started. And we actually attempted doing that in the last 4 months. If you look at the bouquet of services or businesses that we are in, they are all linking into what the government wants things to be. And I think we are very well placed to get an early start, because for everyone else, people will require to set up facilities, invest in warehousing space in rural areas and all that. Our challenge is going to be to make those activities commercially viable. Because India's agriculture is extremely dispersed. So putting all these farmers together, getting customers to them is going to be, so it's going to be a lot more legwork from our perspective rather than a lot of investment to begin with. Commodity trading or agriculture trade was historically a family business, because this requires very critical decision making, which has significant impact on profitability of that enterprise. Because a lot of buying and selling decisions have to be taken and getting the timing and the price right. Over the last 30 years, what I've seen, a lot more professionals coming into the space. So it has moved from being a typical Sethji, Lalaji controlled market to professionals coming into it. So that is one. The second is that it has the whole system of buying, selling, paying. All that has got fairly modernized in terms of technology, the familiarity with exchange trading, the familiarity with futures, and most importantly, India over the years has integrated with the global market. So it is no longer about what is happening in my district or my mandi or my area. Today, prices are impacted by currency changes, by political situations, by crops in other countries, and those prices. So we are no longer playing in a smaller geography. If India is going to be following a policy of minimum support price to the farmers, which is going to be linked to the cost of production and certain profitability over it, it does not therefore leave you very often with opportunities to compete on prices in the global market. The world is not going to pay your farmers for what we think they need to be paid. They are going to be paying you based on what the most efficient producer is able to produce at. And that therefore limits your access to the world market. Another phenomena which has happened over the last 15, 20 years is emergence of bigger and more efficient agri-commodity players. All of Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, and the countries in South America have become extremely efficient producers of various commodities. If you look at us versus them in the early 70s, they've gone far ahead. The Black Sea region has become a big producer of commodities. Australia has improved. Vietnam has come up in certain commodities. China, Indonesia, and all these countries have their own areas of strength. What is happening, one is what we talked about, the agriculture space opening up. What is also happening is the evolution of the food space, the food processing industries, the food retailing space. They are all growing. And the expertise or the investment that is coming in those organizations or those businesses is really about creating products and creating channels to reach the consumer. But that is where their expertise lies, whether it's the e-commerce, whether it is the brick and mortar retail, whether it is the food processing companies. They all are essentially front-facing, consumer-facing companies. We have the ability to take the pain out of their back end. A company which is good at aggregating demand and serving consumers with speed and agility does not necessarily have to have all the skill set required in procuring the commodity at the right price, storing it well, testing it, and all that. So we want to be that solution company where a large retailer or a large consumer-facing company or e-commerce company can say that, okay, we leave all our sourcing, procurement, processing, delivering needs to an organization like you, who has spread across the country, has access to a lot of information, the testing facilities, storage, everything, and you be our back-end manager rather than us trying to do everything ourselves. If I have to look at if I have to set a goal for myself for 2025, it'll be about, I would see ourselves as being close to about 7,000 crores from the current 1,200, 1,400 crores that we do. We see the opportunity because now agriculture, food processing are spaces which have suddenly come back in the consciousness and also the relevance of it. Today, it's not that it was not relevant. It is just that more things had taken prominence or had come, I mean, where the investments were coming, where the sort of the conversations were around. But this crisis has actually brought to the forefront the need to strengthen this base. I mean, in this crisis, the only thing that has stood out is the fact, and that enabled the government and the public. India did, despite being such a large country, did not have a food problem. And that was because, and I wouldn't say that was because of design. We found ourselves at that spot when the music spot stopped, that we had the largest grain storage, grain stocks, and we could distribute it. But I think it is not going to be anymore taken for granted, and there will be a more organized effort both by the government and the private sector.